So in this extra resource, I'm just going to show you some more examples, some more images of the key structures that we were talking about when we were looking around the histological section, because the more times that you see things, the more familiar it starts to become for you. So here we return to the cat skin, and again this is a low power view, just showing you again the location of the epidermis here on the outside of the skin, being pointed out by this arrow here. The other thing I wanted to point out on this slide was the appearance of the fat cells on a histological section. So we said that the cytoplasm of these cells does not stain, which is why this looks clear here, because the fat that was here has been lost in the processing of this section, and so it doesn't stain. But what you will see is a delicate line around the outside, which is marking the cell membrane of that particular cell. And you will also see every so often a more darker blue round or oval structure. That's the nucleus of these individual fat cells. The other thing that's being pointed out in this section here is the base of a hair follicle. We talked when we drove around the section earlier on about hair follicles appearing like this, more superficially in the skin, but bear in mind that hairs have to grow from somewhere, so they grow from deeper down in the dermis, and this would be the base of a hair follicle here. And now we go up on higher power again, and again just to let you see again the epidermis on the outside with its varying number of layers depending on where we are in the body, a hair follicle in cross section here, and the collagen of the dermis, this supporting structure that is sitting underneath. Here we have a different case now. This is a section of dog skin and various things that I'm pointing out to you here. On the surface of this skin there's been some hemorrhage where this biopsy has been taken, where this piece of skin has been taken, there's been some hemorrhage. So this red staining material here, these are red blood cells that are sitting on top of the skin here, and there's some more up around this area here and here. The epidermis again is being pointed out to you here in this case. Here's a hair follicle again here. This one's a little bit more dilated, and there's a bit of a remnant of a piece of hair in this one. It's not so discrete as the ones we were just looking at. And again we've got the dermal collagen, the supporting connective tissue that's sitting underneath the epidermis, just being pointed out to you here. In this case here, we're now looking at the skin from a sheep, and just for interest really, again we've got the hair follicle here in this sheep skin. This structure that's surrounding it, this is just a nice, very nice picture of this. This is called a sebaceous gland, and sebaceous glands are normal structures that produce a substance called sebum. It helps to waterproof the coat and the hairs, and you can see nicely in this section that this sebaceous gland is emptying into this duct here so that it can then actually produce the sebum that gets onto the skin and helps give the animal a nice waterproof coat. And then in this final section here, again we're pointing out the epidermis to you here. Again it's a bit thicker in this particular section here. I also wanted to point out in this section of skin we're looking at here, it's a bit inflamed. This animal has an itchy skin, would have an itchy red kind of skin, and so what that means is that the individual blood capillaries become more obvious. So this arrow here is pointing out to you a small blood capillary with 3 or 4 individual red blood cells that you can actually see quite nicely sitting within that structure. Often in a section of skin we don't readily see these capillaries, because if the skin's not inflamed then they tend to be quite quiescent and they're not so easy to pick up. And the other point, you may be able to detect in this section that there's actually a lot more round and oval nuclear type structures around here. These are nuclei of inflammatory cells. Normally in the dermis, I mentioned before, the skin is an immunologically active site, so it's got cells in it ready to respond if there's pathogens that need to be dealt with. But in the normal skin there shouldn't be this number of these nuclei dotted around. These are nuclei of lymphocytes and other types of inflammatory cells that are around in this area because this animal has an inflamed skin. So that's just a little bit of some extra resources and an extra idea about what other sorts of things we can see in the skin.